Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode numbers 187, The Goddess of Reason. And let me take you back to France in 1789, July 14th. This is Bastille Day. This is when the French people overtook the French government, the Roman Catholicism. They stormed the Bastille, and that day they killed 6,000 priests and nuns, and they slaughtered them dead and threw them in the River Seine. And the River Seine flowed red that day, and so that was the French Revolution, the beginning of the French Revolution, and it was essentially trying to throw off the Roman Catholic monarchy and creating a new state that was founded upon secular atheism or secular humanism, where there was no more religion and that we can figure it out on our own. Well, part of that was some guy named Francois Antoine Momoro. Momoro was his name, and he was a French printer, and he came up with the term égalité, fraternité, and unité, essentially the call of the French Revolution to overthrow the Roman Catholic Church and reinstitute secular humanism and reason as the justification for your own society, or essentially legalism. And so he had a wife named Sophia, or Sophie, which was the first goddess of reason within France. And so what they did was they went to the Cathedral of Notre Dame, which was the center, the centre of all of French Catholicism. And they went and they threw the Holy Mother off of the altar, and they destroyed some statues and icons, and they tried to destroy the innards of the Roman Catholic Church and destroy the icons. And they took Francois Antoine's wife, Sophie, and put her on the altar and gave her curly dreadlocks or whatever it was, and called her the Goddess of Reason, meaning we no longer needed obedience to a hierarchical structure. We no longer needed any kind of obedience to organized religion. That organized religion was the problem, and that we as humans, each and every single one of us, contained all the elements to figure out the perfect true faith, and that we can all become gods ourselves through just natural law and natural reasoning, and that we can actually sit there and we don't need anybody to tell us what to do. We can concentrate, and we can pray, and we can figure it out, and we can actually figure out all the rights and wrongs of society, and we no longer need the church to tell us what is right and wrong. And so essentially that was a Freemasonic revolution, and it was essentially I don't want to say the end of Roman Catholicism in France, but boy, it was a big strike to the heart of Roman Catholicism in France. And it was essentially the atheistic revolution. It was Freemasonry, and it was what essentially gave rise to Karl Marx and communism throughout Europe, and gave us the Cold War and everything else. That the church got overthrown, and everybody thought they could reason their way to the faith, and we could have heaven on earth. Heaven on earth. We could have a perfect utopia on the planet Earth. And well, anyway, this is also, by the way, the Goddess of Reason was also the statue that is in the New York Harbor, Our Lady Liberty, that she was essentially the Goddess of Reason in America, that she's holding, the torch of freedom, and that you can be completely free of all authority, and you yourself can figure it out on your own. Well, I love Lady Liberty because I'm an American, I love my country. But the French, they don't love my church, when they gave the Lady Liberty to us, they didn't love my church either. The Lady Liberty was essentially the anti-Roman Catholic movement in America to have complete freedom from the Roman Catholic Church. And so this is something to think about. And so where did the Goddess of Reason go? She actually went into somebody called Columbia, which is Columbia Pictures. And so, when you look at the beginning of certain movies, and there's the lady with the torch, Our Lady Liberty, that's actually Columbia, that's Columbia Pictures, and she holds the torch up, and that's Columbia Pictures, and that's the Goddess of Reason, and that's essentially that all humans have everything inside themselves that they can actually figure out completely true wisdom, and they can have their own heaven on earth. Essentially, they can eat from the tree of knowledge. Now, I went to Salt Lake City, and I went to the State House in Salt Lake City, and there's this beautiful etched sculpture of the Mormon Brigade charging into battle. And over the backdrop of the Mormon Brigade, there's this woman essentially overlooking the Mormon Brigade, and she's reaching out and she's protecting them. And I took pause there with my children. I'm certain there's never been, there's probably been one or two people in the history of Utah that have looked at the woman overlooking the Mormon Brigade going, who the heck is that? And I looked at it and I said, who the heck is that? Like, why is there some woman overlooking this Mormon Brigade? And so I started doing some research on it, and that is actually, she descends from Columbia, and she also descends from the Goddess of Reason. And the Goddess of Reason is essentially the Freemasonic Revolution against the Roman Catholic Church. I found it really odd that the Momori, was the essentially the founder of it, or one of the initial founders of it. And we have this whole religion, which is Masonic in America, called Mormonism. It's almost named after him. And the Goddess of Reason, his wife, Sophie Momori, was the initial Goddess of Reason in the Cathedral of Notre Dame. So when you go to the State House in Utah and you actually look at this woman overlooking the Mormon Brigade, realize you're looking at the Goddess of Reason, protecting these warriors against the Roman Catholic Church, and that can find their own complete true freedom from any kind of divine authority on this planet. That's what the Goddess of Reason is. That we can all become gods. We no longer need one true God, and we can free ourselves from that one true God and his church by using our own minds and our own prefrontal cortex, and we can have ecstasy on this planet. Interesting. And this Goddess of Reason, by the way, I'm not picking on the Mormons. It's actually everywhere in the world. It's still in France. It's still in America. It's still all over the world. Whenever you try to free yourself from any kind of obedience to divine authority, you are worshiping at the Goddess of Reason, which is essentially, if you really think about it, is the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, that you can actually find complete truth on your own without submission and obedience to any other authority. That's what the Goddess of Reason represents. It's the tree of knowledge. It's the essentially the fallen nature of man, which is amazing. It's amazing to think about that because, and in fact, if you're listening to this and you don't completely understand it, I don't blame you, because this is a complex thought. That the tree of knowledge represents the breaking of authority from God, right? And the Goddess of Reason, who we celebrate in America through Our Lady Liberty, and all the Freemasons do, and all the Protestants do, and all, everybody else who doesn't actually submit to the authority of the church does. The Goddess of Reason essentially represents that we can figure out our own internal salvation without any help from his church, the Roman Catholic Church. That's what the Goddess of Reason is. And you can't. Well, maybe you could, but I'm not certain you can, and you probably shouldn't even try, because a man has all these fallen natures, and essentially that's also, by the way, that's your own personal interpretation of the scriptures, that you can figure it out on your own. This idea comes from Martin Luther. It's 1517. It actually, it was before the French Revolution. So essentially the French Revolution was a Protestant revolution. The Protestant Revolution was a Freemasonic revolution. The Freemasonic revolution was a communist revolution. And so all of this stuff that, has these plagues that have been like hitting the earth the last 300 years, all descends upon the church door at Wittenberg, when a rogue priest said, we no longer need you. We can figure it out on our own. And that is the Goddess of Reason. So this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. God bless you. Get the Mass, live sacramental life, pray the daily rosary, and take care.